Awaken to your truth that you are the I Am presence in harmony with the divine. You are consciousness beyond what the body and mind identify. This is Moment to Moment. Host Lynda Hope will remind and enlighten you to know your divine nature. You were born into the body already aware, but forgot it as you expanded your sense of identity, ego mind, pattern behaviors, and habits. Stop sleepwalking and wake up to your timeless, eternal, formless self. Now, your host of Moment to Moment, Lynda Hope.
Good evening. Namaste to everyone that is in tune and tuned in and turned on to this broadcast of Moment to Moment, because we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to everyone's heart. I'm just being facetious when I say that. We're going to talk about change. Change. And that's not an easy thing to talk about, is it? We don't want to really admit that things are changing so quickly and things are out of control. We don't want to admit that. No. Well, we're going to talk about what change really is and how can we be calm in a place of peace and contentment with change. Yes. So, yeah, we've got a lot to talk about in this hour. But I love these favorite quotes about change. Maybe you have your own favorite quotes. Benjamin Franklin wrote, "Change is the only constant in life. One's ability to adapt to those changes will determine your success in life." Yeah, that's the full quote. And Mahatma Gandhi, I think, was coined at saying, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And I love that one. I really do. Albert Einstein said, "It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." Yeah, that's a good one. And the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. It's another Einstein quote. I love that one. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Oprah Winfrey said, "The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude." Well, very much like what they said about your thinking, right? What Einstein said. But here's the attitude change. Yeah, change your attitude, change your state of mind. Winston Churchill said, "To improve is to change. To be perfect is to change often." Well, that applies to me. I am practically perfect in every way. My children will tell you that I change a lot. But the perfection thing, I'm not so sure about. Wayne Dyer said, "If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." And that is a, quantum physics really move, because they show that when scientists are in the laboratory and they're experimenting and creating, that the scientist affects, by looking at what is being done, affects the outcome. So we as witnesses affect the outcome just by our participation in it. Now, when we talk about change, let's look at what is change and how can we change the way we see change. And again, it's about how we look at things, our thoughts. If our thoughts change, we perceive it differently, right? And this is a topic that's hard for most people because we don't want to admit that life changes, that we change. Yeah, we change, and that our circumstances change. But when we look very closely at it, just look at the world around us right now, right? There's climate change. Seasons change. We just changed our clocks. Time changes. Economic changes. Cultural changes. Sex changes. Global change. Infectious diseases are changing. Migratory changes, the borders are changing, political change. You name anything happening in the world and you will see change. Just like the weather, it changes by the hour. Sometimes it changes by the minute. I think it says in Chicago that you say, just wait an hour and the weather in Chicago is going to change. So when we look outside ourselves, we see a lot of change. But then let's look at ourselves as individuals. How do we change? Well, we live in a time-bound reality, and therefore it always changes. We're habitual and patterned and dualistic. So we live opposite sides, right? Yes, no, right, wrong. And once you recognize that this is all, everything is impermanent, then you can see things a little bit differently. We look at our thoughts, right? That's another thing. When we really look at our thoughts, we see them coming and going all the time, right? We have a thought, it comes and it leaves, very impermanent. Most of these thoughts are habitual. You can see the same thoughts. If you really look closely and witness your mind, you'll see a lot very similar thoughts that you had the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. Yeah. In that respect, that doesn't quite change because our pattern behavior is constantly repeating itself. Now, we could look at situations and circumstances as always changing, of course. Challenges, large and small, are occurring in our lives. We call that life. And if we believe that life is supposed to be easy, why are things happening to me? Well, then you're going to continue to suffer that because life's not supposed to be easy. Sometimes we have it easy and sometimes we don't. Again, we're in duality here. And when we look at our emotions, right? Aren't they always changing? One minute we feel really good and the next minute not so good. Yeah, it's true. Our sense perceptions vary all the time. Let's say we're out in nature and one minute we're looking at the beauty of the clouds and the trees and the flowers. And the next minute we're hearing the sounds of the cardinal and the birds singing and the water and the waves. The next minute we're feeling the sand beneath our feet and our hands, So our perceptions keep changing as well. Yeah. And our bodies are constantly changing. When we eat, our digestion and our nervous system is activated and our taste buds are engaged and our pleasure centers are reacting. And now, of course, our aging happens, even though we don't want to admit that. Our body is constantly changing and our cells are regenerating. Everything in our body is changing. I think they say after 6 years, our bodies are completely revised, are changing all the time. Cells are dying, new cells are being born. And so when we don't feel good, right, and we don't want to admit it because our body's not digesting the food better, well, then we say, I'm just going to put that off, right? No, then you have to eventually address that and go to a doctor and check it out. But we don't like to admit those things. We used to be able to eat everything and now we can't eat most foods. Then yes, that's a change. Or we get older and we retire from our job, and our work has changed, or we don't have work at all and now we're going into retirement. That's a big change. Yeah. Moving is a big change. I'm personally going through that right now. That's why I'm talking about change. Moving my location to another location across country, that's a big change. So let's look at, there was a beautiful article on change that you can look up. You can look up yourarticlelibrary.com. That's yourarticlelibrary.com. And they talk about change in a very beautiful way. And they mention 5 reasons why we resist change. And there are 5 reasons why we resist. So I'm going to go through those 5 reasons and you can write these down or listen to this podcast again or whatever you like. But the first is insecurity. Insecurity. Yeah, insecurity. Changes frighten us, scare the living daylights, really. Individuals tend to find security in traditional approaches to life and situations. We are creatures of habit, and we love predictability. We like to know what's coming. We tend to attach ourselves to people, places, and things. And we like the familiar. That is part of our pattern behavior. We also expect things to be a certain way, and when it isn't, we're not happy. We're not happy. No. One of the major reasons for resistance to change is fear of the unknown, right? Fear of the unknown, because change brings on that idea of what's going to happen next, right? Not knowing exactly what that change entails brings anxiety and apprehension about the change. So a lot of people don't change. They're in a job, and they could be in the job for years and years and years because they're afraid to change. Have you been in a job and just don't want to change it because you're not sure what's going to happen if you do, right? Or you're in a relationship. You've been in a relationship for so long, you're not happy, but at least you know it's comfortable. At least you know what to expect from that person, and you know what your reaction is, and you tolerate it. And maybe it's okay after a while, right? Because you make do. Or, your loved one moves away, and now what are you going to do? It's going to be a big change for you too. Their change affects your change, and you are afraid that it's going to change everything around that you really hoped for, dreamed of with that person. Now that person's not going to be there. That's a big change. So yes, it can be scary. And number two, the lack of proper communication. They say if the need for change is not communicated in an acceptable manner, and of course the word acceptable, what is acceptable? Everybody has their own ideas of what that is, and the way they want it to be done in accordance to what they want. They say then it can lead to resistance if it's not done the way they expect it to be done. And a sense of participation in the change process. So if they can participate in the change process, that reduces resistance. So if you are looking to change, it's important to communicate at some point. At some point, it's very important. Now, when that point is, or at which point it is really relative. And that also could be some kind of cause for conflict. If you decide to wait until it's absolutely going to happen before telling anybody because you don't want them to get upset, which is a situation that's close to my heart, then you use your own judgment. But that person may not think the same way. They might have wanted you to talk to them from the very beginning of your deciding what to do or change. So that's also a way to talk through things. Be aware or mindful that other people can perceive it differently than you, and that's okay. It's perfectly good. And that just has to be discussed. And sometimes it has to be really a heart-to-heart conversation. Number three, rapidity and extent of change. So if the changes are minor and involve routine operations, then there's no resistance, if any. However, if the changes are major, then the resistance will be highly visible. And similarly, slow changes in the process result in lower resistance than sudden or rapid changes. So everybody sort of, we all have a certain way of moving through life. Some people move very slowly. Some people don't like change at all, right? And some people crave change. People desire change. It invigorates them and gives them renewed energy. Some people flow faster than others. I've always been one to flow very quickly, and now I have a partner that loves to flow very quickly as well. So together, things are just unfolding fast. So everybody has a different way of that, occurring. And it's okay. There's no right or wrong in that. The fourth one, emotional turmoil. Emotional turmoil. One of the major reasons for resistance centers on the emotional turmoil that a change may cause. So, number 4, emotional turmoil. The results can also result in misunderstanding and lack of trust. So, even when the change is well intended, its significance is misinterpreted, leading to resistance. Yeah. The emotional responses must be properly diagnosed and predicted, and all efforts should be made to alleviate any fears that may have regarding the consequences of any change. So, in other words, everybody is emotionally going to react in their own way. And some people who love change, love to go and flow, their emotions, they're just excited about the opportunity, where other people may not think change is good and may be very emotionally um, depressed about it, or upset and very fearful about it. So that's something to look at when change is happening to you and you need to communicate that to others, right? You don't know how somebody's going to react until you sit down and say, guess what? I'm leaving town and it's happening in 2 months, right? And they could go, no. And you go, yeah. Well, it takes time to really digest something like that, doesn't it? Especially if it's fast. And number 5, loss of power and control. That's a biggie. There are times when a change will reduce the power base of an individual. This resistance to change can have some very unfavorable consequences. If the change is considered or perceived to be a threat to the individual, loss of loyalty, sudden hostility, and overt defensive behavior will happen. Yes, it's true. People are feeling out of control. And when somebody comes to them and says, well, we're leaving, we're moving, especially if a family has to pick up, let's say a wife or a husband has a job change and the company has asked them to move, right? And you've got to take your whole family and move them. How are you going to sit down and talk with them? The kids have their family, have their friends, and they're going to leave the school system. And that's a lot of change happening. Yeah. So there's a feeling of being out of control when the change is happening and you have very little control over it. Now, is change a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I just read those wonderful quotes about change. That change is what the normal is, right? And for us to be adapting to change is important. Adapting is what we do best. Challenges in life are all to serve a purpose of more than learning lessons, is to wake us up, to be more conscious in this reality. So I'm going to talk about when we look at 5 reasons why we resist change from a personal standpoint. When we resist change as a person, it makes a lot of sense. The person's ego is in charge of the resistance. Depending on the strength of an ego within a certain personality will determine the degree of difficulty the person has with this particular change. In other words, the first point, insecurity. Because insecurity is the ego. Wherever the ego is imposing itself, there's a sense of insecurity, because the ego never feels good enough, never feels like they're in control enough. So if all you know is your ego mind telling you what to do in a situation, you're going to be in a fear-based reactionary mode. It's always looking at how it can feel safe and protected, because it loves habitual behavior. It loves predictability, and it loves to attach itself to the circumstances and to people and things. And it wants to feel protected and safe. It'll do anything to be safe. So change is a huge threat to the ego. It needs to feel in charge. It needs to, change makes the ego feel out of control. So it needs to be in charge of the situation. And that which brings us to the fifth point, loss of power and control. Well, that's what we talked about. The ego wants to figure everything out so it can feel superior to the situation. It wants to it resolves, it wants to handle it in a certain way and control it. Yeah. And when we look at the second resistance, we talked about the lack of proper communication. Sometimes there's a lot of misunderstandings that arise from change because ego is very narrow-minded in its objections. Its perspective is clouded by its past experiences and emotional pain body. So it doesn't see things clearly. It can feel attacked and judged. So the ego defends itself and it sees change as a conflict and very negative instead of an opportunity, which it is. The fourth reason, which is about emotional turmoil, is all about the reaction of the ego. Thoughts generate emotions. Emotions fuel the negative thoughts. And the pain body, which is a collection of old trapped emotions, are activated unconsciously, and they take over. And that is why reactions over a particular change can be way out of proportion to the situation. And when the pain body is involved, watch for an extreme change in mood and intense negative energy. If this arises in you, know that you have awakened your pain body and you need to wake up. You can then bring your awareness into your heart and witness your thoughts and allow the thoughts to dissipate and your energy, your pain body energy, to relax and cool down. And if you see an overreaction in another person, know they are unconscious and they know not what they're doing. So you give them space and time to deal with their changes and what they're feeling about it. And eventually they'll also dissipate. The emotions will lessen, and maybe you'll be able to talk in a better way. But when a person is riled up with the pain body, it's best not to talk. It's best just to give them space and allow it to shift. It brings us to the best part of this talk. So get ready with your pen and paper, because we are going to talk about how to look at change from a healthy perspective. We were already talking a little bit about it, but I have 6 really important points to cover on how you can be okay with change. But let's take a word from our sponsors. You're listening to Moment with Lynda Hope. We'll be right back.
Want to see your video here? Sponsor WLTK-DB Talk Radio and watch us make that happen. With your paid sponsorship of $80, you receive a professional produced audio, video, and banner placement on our station. Not only does your sponsorship air during our live shows, but also replayed on our podcast and heard by hundreds of like-minded people. Visit WLTK-DB.com to get started and find out just how hard we work to get you noticed.
Well, welcome back to Moment to Moment. I hope this does not evoke too many emotional negativity within you. When we talk about change, it's not an easy thing to talk about, right? It- We look at our world outside ourselves and we get really upset sometimes when we see so many changes happening and we listen to the news and the whole world feels like it's upside down. Years back with the pandemic, that really changed our world, didn't it? We went inside into our homes. Our jobs, what did we do with our jobs? We worked from home. A whole different system of working occurred, but we adapted. We revised the way that we did our work. And actually, things changed for the better in some situations. I talked to some families where they loved being with their loved ones. They were working so much outside the home, they barely had time to play with their children. And now they were able to. And they made lemons into lemonade. Before I talk about the 6 ways to be okay with change, I want to just share an event that happened to me personally years back when my daughter was a year and a half old, when my house burned down. When you talk about change, that's a big change. That was emotionally upsetting, quite a bit upsetting. And bringing up a child who was a year and a half old, moving from a crib into a bed outside their home, and having a husband that couldn't handle it, was very much distraught, very distressed. And the load was on my shoulders to take charge and inventory everything in the house to make sure that the insurance would cover everything that was needing to be insured. All the details necessary to rebuild. And when you look at that, when I look back, I made lemon into lemonade with my husband. We rebuilt that house and we changed it the way we wanted to. And we bought furniture that we couldn't have afforded before it happened. And we look back and it really ended up being pretty okay. But in the moment, in the throes of it, it doesn't. And you can't sit there and say, poor me, why is it happening to me? You have to take charge and you have to do what's necessary. And you make the change for the better. Or you don't. And that's when you know either you have some skills, or you don't have some skills. And if you don't have the skills, you learn it real fast. But change does empower us. And change, even though we don't want it, is really healthy. Because the mind is stronger. The body, the spirit is much stronger than we are really knowing it to be in our hearts. We really can see it once we're able to demonstrate how powerful we are and how we can handle even the most difficult situations. So let's go on to explaining it from a higher, maybe even a deeper level of understanding. What are 6 ways to be in your true state? Well, be in the now and allow. Be in the now and allow. Yes. We do not influence, we're not influenced by others outside ourselves in that position. We're not looking outside ourselves. And we're not, I would say, yanked around by the world that appears to be in chaos. When we are truly in our own knowing of our deeper self or our higher self, whatever you want to say, we're not taking the power away from that. We are not looking outside ourselves for the answers. We have the answers right here in our heart. And we know that we are consciousness beyond the body-mind experience. And therefore, everything flows from that place of beingness. Because as the presence that you are, that we all are, change is just witnessed. And we don't really comment about it. We don't say, oh, that's good or bad. or why is it happening, or question it. We just flow with it. We take care of what needs to be taken care of in the moment, but it does not hurt us. We are not personally attacked by it or feel remorse around it. We accept it, totally accept it. And therefore, in acceptance, we allow the synchronicity of it. We allow the universe to unfold and reveal opportunities that are reflected from our state of consciousness. So be in the now. Be this consciousness that you are, this spaciousness, the place of now in this moment, and see it unfold. And then there's no resistance. There's no resistance at all. There's just joy in the miracle of it, actually. As children, we loved to be in the now, right? We loved to be playing in the playground, and we didn't have a care in the world. And that's how it feels to be in the place of the now, because we don't have any expectations about how it's going to turn out. We don't fear about what's coming. We're not in the place of fear where the ego mind really lives. We're in the place of the heart, in the place of love and appreciation. And so when change happens, we appreciate it. We don't deny it. We don't resist it. That's a beautiful way to be. Yeah, just be it. All right, number 2, witness the changeful from the place of the unchanging. So from the place of the unchanging, which is your true self, which is your divine, and we use words, we use words, but words are concepts, but they do point to the place of stillness and presence that you are, the consciousness behind, the witness that sees your thoughts. Because if you see your thoughts, you see how impermanent they are. You see that they just rise and they fall, and that's the changeful. But you are not the changeful. You are eternity. You're eternal, and that's doesn't have a beginning or an end. We just are in this place. So as a witness, your wisdom comes through. You can see your pattern behavior as a person. You can see that play out, but you don't attach yourself to it personally anymore. You're not identified as the person. So from that place of the unchanging, you can see the personal play. You can see life out there unfolding in the play of life and being okay with it. Right. Instead of, you won't have your mind sabotaging yourself all the time or being negative. We can see the clouds, we can see the thoughts coming and going. And as presence, change can be witnessed, but we are actually the unchanged. We are the source of all. And the unchanging energy of oneness consciousness. So change is part of life, but we are life itself. So there is quite a difference in the energy of that and in the dimension of that. And yet we play out in this form. As formless, we play out in the form. We play out in this, our individual play and our likes and our dislikes within the form, but we know that we're deeper than that. And it brings us to number 3. Be the love. Be love. Because we are unconditional love. There's nothing more than that. We're love. And so fear does not even enter the picture. As love, that's all there is. As people, we're very much in our fear-based reality. We're anxious, we're fearful because we're out of tune with the deeper unconscious love that we are. It obscures it. And we create all kinds of drama around the challenges that happen in life, right? The constant challenges that happen, we build stories about it. We see our minds spinning out of control about it because of the fear. But as love, that's all there is. And fear has no place there. And because change evokes fear in a person because it's unknown, we don't know what to expect. That's why, again, we stay in relationships that we're afraid to get out of, or we stay at a safe job, even though we know we're much more capable of doing something else, or, we're bored. We're just bored, but we don't want to move forward. Why? Because we don't like change. Because we're afraid of it. We're afraid of what's going to come. But as consciousness, as a witness of that, we can see that's ridiculous, because change can be seen. Now, if our minds are saying, oh, it's a terrible thing, we're never going to change. But if we see change as an evolution, as opportunities for growing ourselves and growing our lives and having fun in the process, we'll love it. Because we have to be mindful too that sometimes change, the ego wants to change. Yeah. They want excitement. The ego's never satisfied. So sometimes the ego will take over and say, I want to change. I want to go. Blah, blah, blah. I deserve more. I'm going to go get a job. If it's coming from the ego, be mindful that that could also be, not so great. Because then you make changes that maybe you shouldn't have changed because your ego wasn't satisfied or needed something to prove. Or sometimes we say that the grass is greener on the other side, right? Sometimes we say, well, I want to change because I don't like the summers, or I don't like the winters, or I don't like, that's not as sunny as someplace else. But you can also say that you can feel the energy of a place that has more sun. So from an energy standpoint, you go, yes, it gives me this light, this awakened presence within myself that feels good. You see, there's a difference between the ego wanting to be happy somewhere else because it's not happy now, or the realization that you're happy no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, because that's who you really are, that you are happiness, you are joy, whatever word you want to use. Again, it goes deeper than that, but we're pointing to the place of knowing your truth. And if it's coming from the place of the heart and truth, go with it. If it's an honest, absolutely, yes, I feel the energy, I feel the move forward, I feel the momentum flowing, then it's right. Then change is right. And so we look at number 4, be comfortable with not knowing. Be comfortable with not knowing. Because as the beingness experiencing this knowing within the self, consciousness is identifying consciousness. We can see our own consciousness. We know it's to be our truth. We know it's already within us. It's before we even started to identify as this personal body, this mind of this person. We were that. We're always that. And by knowing that, we're comfortable with not knowing anything. We don't really have an opinion from a person, we're not really identified as the person. We're more in that place of presence. So we allow the unknown to be revealed, because the ego is a different story. The ego wants to have the answers to everything. So when it makes a change, it has its list. I'm going to write the list out. I'm going to put down all the points I need to do. I need to cover everything so I can make sure the move is smooth. Well, that's not so bad. Yeah, I mean, there are things you need to be doing if you are going to make major changes. But the difference is you don't have to stress over it. You don't have to stress over it. You have things you're going to do, and you do them. But you don't have to create a story around it and project out all this stuff that could cause stress later, like going into the future, storytelling. That's what being present is great about, because you're not looking at the future. You're not even looking at the past. You are in the present. And as presence, whatever is important will come to your moment of now, and you will deal with it. And so that's effortless. And you don't know necessarily what the next moment's going to be, but that's the joy. That's the freedom. That the mind does not get habituated or thinks about the past and goes, oh, I remember when I moved last time, or I remember when I changed jobs the last time, and builds a story, and then all of a sudden you're petrified. You don't want to move forward. And that can happen very easily. Past pain body, past experiences that weren't healthy or didn't do well, like relationships, right? We've all had our relationships that didn't work, but they didn't work for us to learn lessons about them, right? So that we can move forward and integrate into what's healthy. And if that didn't work, if all you think about is how it didn't work, and now you're going into another relationship, what do you think the outcome's going to be? Not so good, right? Because you're going to be projecting. You're going to be worried about potentially getting involved in another relationship that you're uncomfortable in. Uh-oh, this has always been my pattern. It's always going to be my pattern, and I'm going to mess it up again. And that's very true. You will mess it up again unless you get clear on what your patterns are, habitual thoughts that you have that sabotage you. So part of the change that happens is all about you elevating and realizing this place of stillness within yourself. That wisdom now becomes your perfume, that love becomes your perfume, and that you're able to look at things from a neutral perspective, because it's not right or wrong. It's the ego that makes it right or wrong. So anything that you decide moving forward is really more authentic and more clear. Because when fear comes into the picture, you're not going to make a very good decision. Fear does not help you make good decisions, because it's always in contrast to something. It's always in resistance. And so when you have a decision to make, if you have changes to make, don't make it when you're feeling fearful. You need to get still and quiet, take a breath, calm down, be in your heart, go from your heart. Change should be from your heart, not from your head. How many things you're going to think about and how often you're going to... No, it's not about all the thoughts and details. It's about what are you energetically, what's your momentum? Where are you flowing? And in that flow, things will evolve. And if you call that change, then evolution is change. Yeah. And that flow is unpredictable. And that synchronicity is amazing. And you meet up with so many different people and places and situations that astonish you. And you couldn't have planned it any better than that. You couldn't have, because you went with your heart. You went with the God momentum within. And that's why it's comfortable to not know. It's best not to know. It's not about hiding your head in the sand. No. But it's about following your own intuition and truth, because your intuition is strong. We all have strong intuition. But because our intellect or our intelligence or whatever we call that gets in the way, or our problem-solving part of our brain gets bogged down with detail, we don't trust our intuition to be in the moment and to be able to be flexible enough in that to change. and to see it as an opportunity, no matter what it is. So number 5, see all change as a blessing, an opportunity for expansion. Absolutely. And I'm going to bring on a friend of mine, Barbara. If Barbara's ready to talk, I'd love to have her share her change because she sees it as a blessing. Right, Barb? We're going to bring you on. I hope that, yeah, we're good.
I like what you said. Change is moving forward. Because if you don't move forward, you don't get anything. So when you move forward, I don't know what's going to happen. All I can do is pray for the highest good, the best of the best. So, but we don't know what's happening. But plan, as you say, if you plan everything out, it doesn't work out because those plans might not work out. So this way, just let it flow, whatever is in the moment, and keep moving and have trust in God. So without the trust, it doesn't work.
Right. Trust. That's a big one, isn't it?
Yes.
And tell us, you just retired, right? Or you sold your business. So
yeah,
pretty powerful.
Well, I think what it is finding a new way and defining yourself. And it's not only moving forward, but finding out what you like. It's exploration of your new interests. It's growing.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeking different things and finding new ways and filling your life with new experiences. Every day is a new experience. Every day I want to be able to see life in a different way.
Yes. And you do, because you are optimistic.
Yes.
You know, they say whatever you look at, whatever the way you look at it changes it.
Right.
Your attitude, your thought, your positive mood. You know, we all know how that changes things, right? When we're in a happy mood, people around us are happy, right? But when we're not happy, people around us don't want to be with us.
Yeah. Well, as I say, what I like to do sometimes in the morning to get my day ready, not to I do my meditation, but I'll do It's a Wonderful Day, It's a Wonderful World, and I'll listen to the song. Then after that, the transformation starts. You start elevating, you feel better, and it's much better. People can feel your vibrations and you feel their vibrations. And I think sometimes it's a good idea with change because a lot of times you have people that you've had for comfort for many, many years.
Yes.
Then they're not moving not as rapidly as you, but they don't accept it. And they just see things very differently. It's very narrow for them. So what you think is an opportunity, how could you do it? Or why are you doing this? So the people that are defensive in that way will never be good friends because I think that after time, you have to find people who match. When you have changing habits, you have to find people who really like those things, express those things, and want to open up their hearts for new ways. If you're going to just say one way, it's never going to work.
That's right. And it helps our brains, right? It helps everything in our body to be rejuvenated and to.
Exactly. I think music is amazing.
Music. Well, we talked about that, right? Putting on a song and you dance and dance.
Lynda, your music is the best. The songs that everything is so good. It's delicious, one heart.
Thank you.
It was very good.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being part of the show. I always love you on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for being my friend.
Thank you for being my friend.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see you in a little bit. I want to recognize people who are on my chat here. Courtney, thank you for all your wonderful comments. Yeah, you say, I appreciate your words. You ground us. Thank you so much. Stanley, thank you for joining us. And Tony from Florida, hello. Welcome on the show. I hope you can, join us every week. Thank you. And, we are here talking about change, and those who want to make a comment about what you just experienced in your life that has really been a major change for you and how you personally handled it, or how you felt you could be of help to others in that situation, please comment. But our fifth point, to get more specific, is we know that whatever arises, good or bad, is supposed to arise, and that there are no mistakes. Some people may say, oh, come on, it's a happenstance, but I don't think so. I think that the world, the universe responds to exactly our vibration and what we are, and what we are putting out, transmitting at the time. It's called law of attraction. So what we put out, we receive back. If we're coming from a place of love, love is flooding back. If we are coming from a place of appreciation that everything that's happening to us in this moment is a blessing and that it unfolds perfectly, then yes, then things do flow perfectly back. But if we are in resistance to it, we're going to keep finding resistance in our way. And I know that we can experience that within our own lives. We can see that happening, right? Because when let's say, we're a good example is we're out in the grocery store, right? And there's a big line in front of us and we're waiting to check out. Now, if we're not totally present in that moment, we can be upset that, right, in that moment, because we have to go somewhere and for our precious time is important, and we could build a story around it, and we're unhappy in that moment. And so that moment is not going to be fun for us. But if we take it as an opportunity to breathe, to notice around us other happy people doing happy things, and we smile and we're upbeat, then we're changing the whole environment of that place. We really are putting out that energy and maybe even alleviating some stress from other people who are also feeling, why isn't this line moving, right? So we affect change by our persona, by our energy, by our joy that we can emit through this form. And so when we see things as a blessing, we flow very easily. And we also know that in every moment that arises, that comes at us, it's either an opportunity to learn something. There's a challenge that faces us. We go, can I be conscious enough in that moment to allow that challenge to be whatever it is and to transmute it, to elevate above the challenge, and maybe even have it just be very effortless as I work through it. Because we know how it is. If we get bogged down and a problem comes along and we get tense and we get irritable and we can't do it, and our computer crashes, and all of a sudden things start falling apart. We have to look at our behavior and say, what did we just do here? Yeah. But then again, we can also notice when we're approaching it with, we don't really mind whatever it is, it's going to be okay. It's much easier. I would say take note of that. Realize that in yourself and realize what happens when your moods change and how it affects others and how it definitely affects you as well. So we look at the opportunities, we say blessing. Let's use that as an opportunity to grow and expand and reflect the degree of love and light that we have currently in our lives. So number 6, how can we be the change we want to see in the world? Be that change. Be that change. Mahatma Gandhi, I think, was coined for that expression. What does that mean, to be the change? Okay. Being the change is all about having that deeper connection, knowing your deeper dimension, and be that. Just be that. I am presence. I am. I am. But we seem to see I am as something else. As a person, we say, I am this job, I am this parent, I am this sex, I am this age, I am, but that's not the I. The deeper I is stillness, presence, beingness. That's all there is. And again, if you want to use words like love, God, joy, peace, those are just concepts, but we really know that it points us to that place of stillness within ourselves. And when we can enjoy that stillness, and we're awake and aware, in that moment, wisdom flows through us, clarity, calm. And that's how we are adjusting. That's how we make the change. That's how we change the world. By our change, by what we do to change in ourselves, to realize our truth. And to realize that everything out there in our outer world can also be influenced by that. But the work is here. Self-inquiry, knowing who you are deeper, is the work. And then change happens for the better. It does. And you can witness that and see that as true. This is all experiential learning. There's no books. Well, there are some books on it. In fact, my next guest next week, Russell Bishop, did write a book. And his book is From Self-Talk to Soul Talk. From Self-Talk to Soul Talk. He will be my guest. And he will talk about what it is to become more of who you truly are. And you can listen to people like Eckhart Tolle and Mooji, Mooji, talk about being the change and knowing your truth. Knowing who you really are is the antidote for dealing with everything that's changeable in the world. Because change happens. Shift happens, really. Shift happens with the change because it propels us to wake up. The difficulties of the world, the challenges of the world, the most challenges will create that strong desire within you to know your truth. Because you certainly can't get it from looking outside yourself. And you certainly can't get it by listening to the news. And you certainly can't get it by listening to others people's opinion of you or them wanting you to be different than you are. Yeah, that's where you get confused. And that's where you allow fear in. And then you're habituated again. Yeah. And that is unconsciousness. So hopefully this show has brought some, pointers or helped you remember a little bit about your truth, about who you really are, because if you hear my words and it resonates with you, fantastic. Every day, tune into people that can help and guide you, because it really does awaken you to your truth and to who you really are. And that's how we change the world. That's how we impact. That's how we influence. We are influencers. And the higher vibrational beings that we are is limitless. And so the problems of the world really don't exist. The changes of the world are just changes. They're not right. They're not wrong. They evolve. They move. They flow. And we're all part of the flow. We're all part of the oneness consciousness that we are. And in this place of oneness, there's no separation. It's not us and our problems anymore. Yeah, it's a beautiful place to be, to just be. So next week, when you tune in on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central, my guest, Russell Bishop, will come on and we will talk. And if you want to join us live on WLTK-DB.com, we'd love you to participate and write some questions for him. And He'll be very much happy to respond, and he's an amazing guy. I've had him on other shows of mine. And please join us on the podcast and subscribe to my podcast. You can hear me on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, and on Podbean. And Moment to Moment is really all about being in the moment, being your truth, knowing it, remembering it, rejoicing in it, and sharing it with the world. So embrace change, embrace it, and be still in it. See you next week on Moment to Moment. I'm Lynda Hope.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.